Hey everybody, so this is an animated episode and the link will be in the description below if you want to watch it. We've been working on it for a while now, and this has always been my vision for what the UMIND and Creeping Wave, my two podcasts I run, were going to be. Is I always want to incorporate some kind of animation, maybe like a little bit of a Tom Goes to the Mayor kind of element into it. And so this is my experimentation with it. And to do this on the regular, I'm going to need a much more powerful computer and probably a staff because doing it on my own is quite a lot. But I think it was worth it, and I really want to support the artist who is our guest on the show, Vince Alvendia, and he contributed his own artwork. I asked him to do sort of an illustration of himself in a couple different poses, and then I would sort of intersplice it in with original artwork and composites that I put together to sort of tell his story and animate his interview. And it's really fun, and I hope you'll check it out. The animation kind of ramps up as we go along as I got more comfortable with it. I'm just using iMovie and Photoshop, so yeah. But who knows what the future holds? Might be getting better equipment. I don't know. You can always go to patreon.com and help support the show and help me get there a little faster if you want to. But also, just listening helps us out, and really just supporting the artists who appear on the show, and that it means so much to me that you're even tuning in right now. One thing that I do want to mention is that we do talk about the artist's influences, and one of the things that comes up is Harry Potter, and I know that J.K. Rowling's is having a not so nice moment on Twitter right now. But I think I had been advised by some people to just edit everything about Harry Potter out. But I think in canceling people, canceling somebody comes with the idea that an opinion or their current ideas are static and they can't be changed. And so I think that instead it's better to show people that, especially in J.K. Rowling's case, that Harry Potter has become part of the cultural consciousness. It's affected people. It goes beyond you. It's something bigger than you right now. And maybe you need to think about how you what responsibilities that might come with. So anyway, I hope that you enjoy, and yeah, so check it out. And if you just want to listen along, that's great. But check out the animation at some point because it's really fun. It's really cute. You're gonna enjoy it. Okay, just do it. All right, thanks. Bye.
The following podcast is a presentation of Project Entertainment Network.
Don't be scared now, but it looks like you just wandered straight into UMIND country. That's UMIND, short for unaffiliated mind games, and you ain't never gonna be the same again. Brace yourself. It's time for a red hot truth injection. Oh yeah! That's right, bitch. We're rounding up the sheeple and shaking them awake. You mind? Too damn bad. We're gonna set fire to the wool over your eyes. Feel the burn, baby. Hot damn. We're toppling the lies of the mainstream media one by one. Woo-wee. Watch them bad boys fall. Hey, Universe A. This is Universe B calling, and we're gonna tear you a new one. You mind?
Okay, everybody. Hey, I am here with Vince Alvendia. Am I saying that correctly?
That's correct.
All right, very good. Because yeah, okay. All right, everybody. I am here with Vince Alvendia, and he is an artist and freelance illustrator. He is the illustrator for the book Dark Agents by Dr. Janina Scarlet, who we did an interview with as well. And Vince, tell us a little bit about yourself. I know that you recently have been through a big rebranding.
Yeah. So, oh yeah. First off, I'm a independent and freelance artist local to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in San Diego pretty much all my life. So, home of the famous San Diego Comic Con International. And as far as rebranding goes, my website used to be beancento.com. and all of my social media was at Bean Cento. And it was kind of my own personal inside joke that nobody else was in on.
Yeah.
And it stemmed from when I took Japanese class in high school. Everybody in my class got really cool, I guess you would say Japanese equivalent names, like Ryu or Ichiro, and I'm pretty sure my friend Steve's name was Ryu, which was one I was like really envious of because
Yeah.
Street Fighter 2 was like really popular at the time. But anyway, she gets to my seat and she's like, "Oh, Vincent, you're Bean Sento." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds kind of cool. What's that in Japanese?" And she's like, "Oh, that's Vincent in Japanese, just phonetically."
Huh.
And I was like, "Well, that's kind of a bummer."
Yeah.
I was waiting for like a really cool, culturally significant name or culturally normal name, and I got my name phonetically. And then, funny enough, it's the only thing I remember how to write from 2 years of taking Japanese class is my first name, and that's how I sign all my artwork.
Mm-hmm.
But I decided to rebrand to Egg Drop Ramen Studio
Mm-hmm.
because I'm fortunate enough to have done a couple of panels at comic conventions, and at the tail end of the panels, they're always like, how can people get at you on social media? And I would say my name, and people would just get like really weird looks, like what does that mean? And then I'd have to spell it out, and it's really awkward to spell out,
Yeah.
especially in a short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I need something better, and it kind of cemented it. The last panel I did was at Comic Fest, and they're like, where can they find you on social media? I'm like, Bean Cento, at Bean Cento on all social media. I was like, you know what? If you guys really want to follow me, just come grab a business card,
Yeah.
just because I don't want to take all the time to spell it out. And that's when I clicked in my. I was like, you know what? It's always been awkward trying to tell people how to follow me at these panels. So I came up with eggdropramen.studio.
Yeah. Because everyone loves egg drop ramen, so people remember it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been it's been my comfort food since I was a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like one of the first things I learned how to cook as a latchkey kid. So
Aw.
it just kind of made sense.
Very cool. Your story about the bean sento kind of reminds me of. Have you heard the story of Tattoo Script? How when people would ask for their names in like Japanese, like could you do Jeff but in Japanese? They actually came up in tattoo parlors this fake script for like J and E and F, and it's just like basically there's a chart and it goes down. A looks like this, B looks like this, but it's not really Japanese. It's a totally fake script. So people who were in the tattoo industry could read it. They could tell what it said, but it wasn't actually anything in Japanese at all. So there's a bunch of people who have these weird tattoos that are translated because there's really no Japanese word for Jeff or that kind of thing.
Yeah,
So,
that's actually pretty cool. That's kind of like a cool little secret language they came up with.
I don't know
Heck,
if
now
they
I
still do
kind of
that
want my name
anymore.
in that script now.
I'm not sure they do it anymore, but I know that was back in the day with like sailors and stuff like that. They would do that a
That
lot.
is hilarious.
So I'm very excited about talking about your illustration. Now you have a really fresh, really different illustration style that everybody should go check out. It's a little bit Disney. It's a little bit kind of a manga influenced. It's very different from anything else that's out there, and I really appreciate it a lot.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and you are the illustrator for the Dark Agents books.
Correct.
Yes. Wow. So that is a hardy project. How did you get involved with that?
Yeah, so that kind of fell into my lap by working with Dr. Scarlet on other books.
Mm-hmm.
We first got together creatively through a friend of a friend, and this was when she was working at Sharp Hospital for their pain management program. And they wanted to do a little mini comic to give out to patients that were weaning themselves off of pain medications. So it was to illustrate kind of like the I guess physical activities and methods that you could use to manage your pain without medication.
Mm-hmm.
And the setting was kind of like a how do you say it, a pain management support group.
Yeah.
And so I did that with Dr. Scarlet, and her and her colleague. It was received really well by her and her colleagues at Sharp, and just working with her and through her with her team there, we kind of clicked creatively, and she really liked my visual style and my emotive style. So from that, um, she left Sharp Hospital to kind of branch out on her own, and she wrote another book called Harry Potter Therapy that she published through Amazon. And I did the cover work and the chapter icons for that book, as well as kind of like Marauder's map for therapy, so to speak. And we also did a book called Therapy Quest together, which is choose your own adventure, but with a therapy twist. And that was first published in the UK, and then I want to say like a couple of months later it came over to the US. And that book was like my first book where I was like kind of like a published credited illustrator, by a publishing company. And it was through Little Brown, which is the same company that published J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter books, which was pretty cool.
That
Cool
is
little
pretty
fact.
cool.
Yeah. Then so from there, after that book, she wrote she kind of outlined a series of novels called Dark Agents, and it was planned for 8 novels. And I forget what she calls herself literally. There's a term for it, but she's basically a plotter. So she kind of plots out or she outlines the plots of her books before she actually gets into like the meat of the writing.
Yeah.
And so when she presented this to her editor, um, he kind of read it and he's like, this is a really cool book. This would kind of work really well as a graphic novel if we considered doing like a comic style, you know, um, version of this. And her being from a geek background, she's like, yeah, actually, that's a really great idea. So it was between me and 2 other artists. I submitted, samples of my art to prove that I could draw, fantasy illustrations. Because I think to that point, she'd only seen kind of like my more just kind of normal illustrative stuff, and nothing that really, branched off into like the deep fantasy, fantastical world. So I kind of flexed my imagination muscles and gave her some concept art, and she really liked it. And we already had a really good creative rapport going. So I ended up winning the job, and the rest is kind of history.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really interesting book. And I'm really a big fan of the series. I really enjoy it a lot. Um, One thing I wonder about when you do something like that, now the characters, does she have a written description and you just kind of go through and you draw what you think the character looks like?
Yeah, she has, of course, she has kind of what she pictures in her head
Mm-hmm.
of what the characters look like. And when I was first going through the character design, um, it was more she was giving me like a general like what type of being or race they were,
Okay.
and then kind of like a little bit of background story and where they came from emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
So it was less like specific visual details and more of a sense of a character that she was giving me.
Okay.
And luckily enough, whenever I drew something, it was very rare that I had to do multiple versions of a character. It was almost like, I mean, I know it's not the norm, but like usually the first, second, or third drawing, and she'd be like, "Yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I want it to be," and it wouldn't be too much tweaking. So we were very fortunate in that regard.
Y-
Or I mean, at least I was, because of
Yeah.
course, less for me, and it kind of showed me that I was on the same page as she was.
Yeah, just on the same wavelength with her. That's really cool. So that's a lot of the commissions that I have, people will come at me and they have no idea what they want, and so it's like 7, 8, 9 drawings, and then they're like, you know what? Actually, like the first one, I kind of like that, and it's could you do something sort of like that? And I was like, yeah, I guess
Yeah,
so.
what I always tell people is like one of the worst things. I mean, at least from my personal experience
Mhm.
and from the artists I know, such as yourself,
Mhm.
some of the worst things that a client can do is give you free reign.
Yeah, yeah, because they
Because
don't
it's like,
really
how do you
want free
narrow it
reign.
down?
Yeah. And I find that they actually know what they want, they just don't wanna say what they want, so you just have to kinda, like, piece it together and figure it out, and it's always a little frustrating, but that's really cool. So you guys just vibed with that fantasy world. I know, you mentioned Harry Potter therapy, and I know that you are a big Harry Potter fan,
Mhm.
as am I. You are a Hufflepuff, I believe.
That is correct. Proud Hufflepuff.
Proud Hufflepuff. Very nice. I'm a Ravenclaw, which is exciting. But it's probably not very exciting among artists, honestly. There's probably a bunch of them who claim that. But yeah. So, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it's funny that Hufflepuffs get a bad rap because we're kind of
Oh,
considered the leftovers, I guess. But
yeah.
I kind of see it as like the most inclusive group,
It
you know?
really is. They're the loyal friends, and yeah, they're.
Exactly, exactly. And I mean, if we didn't know Neville Longbottom as a Gryffindor,
Mm-hmm.
if you just described his character to me, without telling me what house he was from, I would assume he was a Hufflepuff.
See, yeah,
You know?
I always got that kind of feeling about Neville as well too.
Yeah.
But they're the glue that holds every. My mom is a Hufflepuff,
Mhm.
and my one of my nieces is a Hufflepuff, and so I'm just yeah. Though nobody really uses the American houses, even though they came out. So have you noticed that?
Yeah, the was it? I forget the house. Was it Livermorny or Livermorny?
Ilvermorny, yeah. What?
Ilvermorny?
Yeah,
Yes, it's kind of a
yeah,
tongue twister. I know what I used to know what house I was,
yeah.
but I had a cool Patronus.
Hmm.
Because mine was like it was, I forget, it's like a little, there was a specific name for it, but it was like a little mink.
Oh, cute.
It looked kind of like it looked kind of like an otter or a weasel, which I
Oh,
thought was pretty cool.
that is pretty cool. So I guess let's talk about kind of a wee little Vince, a young Vince. When did you first realize that you wanted to do something with regards to art and comics?
Oh wow. So my earliest memories of like really applying myself to drawing
Mm-hmm.
was, I want to say, like in the second or third grade. This would be about like around 1982, 83, I guess,
Yeah.
maybe in 84 is when He-Man first came out.
Oh yeah.
So I'd always had a fascination, of course, like any kid, with cartoons, and specifically with Popeye and Mighty Mouse,
Mm-hmm.
because that was on TV. That was during a time when there wasn't much Disney stuff on TV unless
Yeah.
you caught it in theaters or you rented like a video of it. So I really loved. I know I really latched on to Mighty Mouse
Mm-hmm.
and Popeye. Popeye, because of the underdog quality. He's kind of like a weakling until he eats his spinach. And then when I ate real spinach, I was like, that was a cruel trick. But I love Mighty Mouse because I don't know if there's just a hormonal development of me, but I like that he always got the girl,
Mm-hmm.
and they drew the Mighty Mouse's little love interest really appealing.
They did.
So
Yeah.
I would draw Mighty Mouse and draw myself as a hero a lot. And then, once I got into elementary school, I found that, I was kind of like the awkward, shy kid.
Mm-hmm.
And back then I had a really, really thick Filipino accent. But kids, gravitated towards me because they found out I could draw well. So, of
Oh.
course, it was like, can you draw this character? Can you draw this for me? And then when He-Man came out, like, that was the thing, because it was like the anatomy, could you draw muscles cool and
Mm-hmm.
all that. And like any kid, I had no clue about anatomy. So I'm drawing He-Man. I'm putting muscles on muscles on muscles that don't exist. It's just a bunch of, blobs on the stick figure. And there was another kid, and I cannot remember his name. I could see him clearly in my head. He was a Mexican kid, and he was another kid that had like a thick accent, was really shy, but he could draw better than I could.
Mm-hmm.
And he could really get down on He-Man, and he could draw Battle Cat, and I couldn't draw animals, to save my life at the time. So he was taking a lot of the spotlight away from me. I was like, man, this sucks.
Oh.
I was kind of like the cool kid because I could draw for a while, and then this kid comes over and steals my gig. And I'll never forget this. We ended up sitting at the same table for a group thing, and it was a rainy day, and we stayed at the table and we just started drawing. And I was like watching him. I'm like, man, you draw He-Man really cool. How do you do that? Like I got up the courage to ask him, how do you do that? And he was, bless him, he was so gracious and kind enough to show me how he drew He-Man. And that was like my first real lesson in construction, where he's like, these two squares, that's his chest, that's pictorial. You draw him big, so he has this huge chest. But anyway, that was like my first experience with trying to learn how to draw in earnest. And then I want to say it was around the third or fourth grade was when I discovered PBS and Commander Mark.
Oh yeah.
His show was my introduction to perspective and
Mm-hmm.
foreshortening and shading. And then, the highlight of every show was at the end of the show, he would draw in that giant mural where he draws like little stalactites and stalagmites, and he'd hatch them. and then
Mm-hmm.
draw like a little bear, and then that started my fascination with caricature, and then I started wanting to learn how to draw backgrounds more, and less just characters, because up to that point I was just like drawing characters. The way he explained perspective and foreshortening clicked with me. There was a lot of self-teaching, a lot of figuring stuff out for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I learned a lot of conceptual, or not conceptual, but I guess impressionistic stuff
Mm-hmm.
when I started watching the Bob Ross painting series.
Yeah.
It was an impression of a tree, but it looked like a rendered tree. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like that's when I learned how you could take shortcuts and not have to draw every little detail,
Mm-hmm.
and it would still look like the thing you were intending it to, which was like magic to me. And this dude was like doing it within like half an hour,
Yeah. Yeah.
with oil paint of all things. So I've always had a love of watching people draw. I mean, when we've been neighbors, I'm sure you've noticed me hovering and watching you draw and kind of
Yeah.
just being a lurker. I love watching that process because I'm a visual learner,
Mm-hmm.
and I steal little tricks that that I catch on to, and I kind of store them away to try out later.
Sure.
And then for me, I want to say the turning point to like wanting to like just try to make art or drawing a living was in the early 90s. I discovered comic book collecting, and this was right before the image boom.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very much into Spider-Man and Daredevil. I really loved how dynamic all those, and I think that's why I gravitated towards Spider-Man and Daredevil,
Yeah.
because it was kind of like the high-flying, swinging, body contorting kind of anatomy that just
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, wow, that should look wrong, but it doesn't. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I was learning how to draw stylistically just by copying the artists of the time, like John Byrne, early Jim Lee, even especially the covers. I would try to recreate the covers and recreate those styles. And I remember coming across a book in the public library called How to Draw the Marvel Way.
Hmm.
And I don't know what I was looking for, but I remember finding that book. And the minute I found it, I checked it out, I poured over it. That was kind of like the turning point for me as far as like learning how to draw. That was the game changer,
Mm-hmm.
because that was like my first introduction to like true drawing for anatomy. And to this day, I recommend it to anybody that wants to start drawing, whether it's comic book related or not, because it really does from beginning to end. It gives a really good crash course into everything about drawing.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wouldn't that be cool if I could be a comic book artist? Because, all my friends love comic books, I love drawing. But for me, the turning point where I really took it seriously was when I became a fan of anime.
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember the cartoon series Robotech.
Oh yeah, yeah, I do.
Up until that point, almost every cartoon I saw on American TV in English, I assumed was made in the US.
Mm-hmm.
And then Robotech comes out, and they have main characters that die,
Yeah.
and there's like a finite ending to the story, and there's the plot's going somewhere, and it was mind blowing for a kid that was like 10 or 11. I was like so drawn into like the drama of it. I love the art style, I love the animation. It was so different from like episodic GI Joe stuff that was out there. So of course, when the art books came out, my good friend Bobby in the 5th grade, he bought a Robotech Art 1 and brought it to school, and he was like the hit of the class. And it had all the line drawings and character designs. And when my mom would go to JCPenney or whatever, I would be like, Mom, just leave me at the bookstore. I'm never going to leave here. Nobody's going to kidnap me. You'll always know I'm here in this section reading this book. And I would just literally just look at all the pictures. And it was like the screen grabs and the stills of the animation and the line art of the character design, never really paying attention to the text. And I would say like for a whole school year, I would do this anytime my mom went to the mall. She finally noticed me, she's like, man, you really like that book. You're always reading it. And my mom was like, do you really like it that much? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, do you want it? My jaw probably literally hit the floor.
Yeah.
I was almost like, is this a trick?
Yeah.
I was like, yes, can we buy it? And she's like, yeah, we can buy it. And she bought me the book, and I was like, holy cow, I have this book.
Mm-hmm.
So I spent hours trying to redraw the screen grabs, tracing the character designs, the black and white line art of all the main characters and the vehicles and the robots and what have you. I was like, you know what? Why don't I try reading this book? There's not a lot of text to it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was reading the book and reading kind of the brief history of how they created it. And then at the back of the book, it gave you a little origin of how they put the show together. And that's when I found out that it was actually 3 Japanese animated shows that had nothing to do with each other than they shared the word super dimension or super dimensional in the title of the show. And that they were made by the same studio.
Yeah.
But other than that, they had zero relation to each other, which blew my mind. They melded so well in the series. and I was reading about the iconic artists and designers of the show,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them, who's one of my top three artistic heroes, his name is Haruhiko Mikimoto. He signs his artwork Hal. It said that he was a character designer, and I was like, whoa, character designer.
Yeah.
Like his whole job is just to design the main characters of the show. And that was like really super appealing to me.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of like got the wheels rolling of like, I kind of want to be in this animation world, because how cool is that you design something and it ends up on a big screen or a little screen moving with life. And then shortly after that, Disney was about to experience its renaissance and awaken something in me when they released The Little Mermaid.
Oh, yeah.
So that was another game changer for me artistically. Like that movie blew me away. I love the look of it. I love the design of it. What really struck me after the first time I saw it was, holy cow, I went through this whole movie going through this journey with this character, and she speaks for maybe 20 minutes total in the movie, if
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And you spend the whole movie on the ride with her, and all she's doing is emoting.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like magic to me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like I didn't know you could do that with animation or drawing even. And that's what made me, so that cemented in my head that I wanted to become an animator. You know, yeah, I tried to build up a portfolio, and you know, to be frank, my parents weren't really on board with it because you know, traditional Asian family wants me to be a doctor or dentist or something other than an artist. You know,
Yeah.
they saw it as a hobby, not something you could support yourself with, or even as a career option. So you know, I kind of took it upon myself to just be like, you know, I'm just gonna do this on my own then. Just calculating expenses was like, there's no way I can afford this. There's no way my parents can afford this unless I got some kind of scholarship. And I looked at my portfolio and I was very honest with myself. I felt like I needed more time to kind of grow and draw and kind of figure it out for myself. You know, like I was saying, I wanted to be an animator, but somehow in college that morphed into a lit degree.
Oh, wow.
It's a modern lit major, yeah, which that was a hell of a turn. And I feel like I felt like I lost sight of my goals.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that part of it was my environment. Not to say that my family life was bad or anything like that, or my friendships were bad or anything like, but me myself, I felt like I was stuck in a rut. I needed a jarring change to kind of get out of it.
Yeah.
So I joined the Navy to try and pay my way through school.
There you go.
And so in joining the Navy, I ended up getting stationed in Spain for almost my whole, you know, military career, which was awesome. You know, I got to see Europe on the Navy's dime, as well as have a cool job and make some friendships and keep drawing.
Yeah.
And near the end of my enlistment, I went and actually toured the San Francisco Academy of Art and showed my portfolio to one of their admissions counselors. And you know, the path was kind of set.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as we know, life happens, and I met someone.
Yeah.
Ended up getting married. Ended up having a kid, and also 9/11 happened.
Oh, jeez.
So it was just like a lot of life events kind of derailed it for quite a bit, if I'm being honest. I had an opportunity. I had a couple of opportunities through my friend Ron. He was working at the time. He was working on King of the Hill, and then Cleveland show. I got to test for The Simpsons.
Wow.
And if I'm being 100% honest, I wasn't ready for those kind of studio jobs, so to speak, you know? And he really did his darndest to try and get my foot in the door. And I will forever be grateful to him for that. And he's still a really good friend, you know, and super encouraging. And, you know, I will forever be in his debt for that. But I honestly, and where I was in life when those opportunities came about, I just wasn't ready personally or artistically.
Yeah.
You know, so I took the long road to Dark Agents and my first big comic book, where I was just doing freelance design work for like local businesses.
Yeah.
Of course, commission work. People wanting me to draw their characters. Kind of dreaming about it. It no longer became like focused on animation. Period. It's like I just want to draw.
Yeah.
You know, I want to make a living drawing. You know, and that brought me to where I am with Dark Ages. I just kept on plugging away at it, networking, talking to people, showing them my stuff.
Yeah.
And it was really throwing a bunch of spaghetti at the wall, and finally something stuck.
Very cool.
So that's a very long version of how I got to where I am.
It is. And yet, by far and large, I think that winds up being how so many people in the art industry eventually land it. They always know that they want to do art, but they don't really understand how you get into it specifically and that kind of thing.
It's true. You there's no real set way to do it.
So, I know that Dark Agents is a continuing series, and can you give us any hints as to what will be coming along in the next books? Now, one thing that's really interesting about this that if people don't know, that it is a series that was kind of developed to help people deal with different mental struggles that they're going through. The first one's about PTSD. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. So what's great about Dark Agents is what I like to say is you kind of learn something against your will.
Mm-hmm.
So Dr. Scarlet is such an awesome writer.
Yeah.
She really has a great style to her writing. What she's great at, and I think it's because of she's a geek herself. She's
Yeah.
very entrenched in her world. Big Harry Potter fan, big X-Men fan, Star Wars fan. She's married to like a huge Star Wars geek.
Very nice.
And in Dark Agents, you're going through the journey with the characters. So when they're going through what you would call like a therapy session or some kind of like instructional way of dealing with their struggles, it doesn't feel clinical or shoehorned because it feels part of the story. It's a natural part of the progression of the story.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, it's key. It becomes a key tool in how the characters advance their stories. Without giving too much away.
Yeah.
The first book is Violet and the Trial of Trauma. So of course, it's Violet's journey in dealing with her traumatic past and how she gains the tools through the instructors she meets at this agency where she's
Mm-hmm.
trying to become a dark agent to help her deal with her trauma and move forward from it. Yeah, so every book is planned for a different kind of mental challenge or mental struggle or disorder, or what have you. So the first one is trauma. The second one, there's no title yet. It's plotted and written, and it's being pitched as we speak. So we're just kind of waiting to hear back from the publisher or
Cool.
publishers whether or not they want to pick it up. Cross your fingers for us because it's such a great story.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to deal with a character named Persifer,
Yeah.
and her struggles are with anxiety and OCD.
Mm.
And what's cool about her character is that she's a shapeshifter. She's a shapeshifter that comes from a royal family, and she shapeshifts into a dragon.
Yes.
And I kind of went through a redesign with her that Dr. Scarlet, signed off on. We're like super excited about it. If you go on my Instagram, you can see a mock-up of the cover
Yeah.
that went with the pitch.
Yeah.
As you progress through the books, since you're kind of discovering what the character from the previous book is going through, when you see them in the next book and you see them kind of in the background, they're not the focal point of the story, but, you start seeing what they're going through,
Mm-hmm.
through a different lens. So you realize that, even though this specific thing is happening to the main protagonist of this book, it's still affecting the people around them and the people associated with them. It builds kind of a path to empathy. It was in another interview, it was mentioned like how people relate to, these heroes of these stories that we love, like Superman
Mm-hmm.
or Batman. They have all these kind of traumatic incidents that are the impetus of them becoming heroes or becoming greater than.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of us don't realize is it's the same kind of trials that we go through,
Yeah.
but because it's in a fantastic setting, we kind of amplify them to the
Mm-hmm.
fantastic,
Mm-hmm.
where we forget that it's relatable,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is why we love it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's the power of story and then these kind of characters, and I think that's what Dr. Scarlet is tapping into.
So I definitely think this is a series that people should check out and check out your other artwork. And I do have to ask, since we are talking during the lockdown in the state of California,
Yes.
yes, how have you been keeping yourself busy? Has your life changed that much, or what have you been doing to compensate?
Art wise, it's hard to focus,
Mm-hmm.
but then once I get into it, it's becoming an escape. To be honest, since I can't really do any other errands, I can use that time to draw. I've been catching up on commissions and
Mm-hmm.
taking commissions. I'm working on is Scott Lost is putting together like a hero anthology, and I'm putting together a short story for that. By the time this is all over and we're finally let loose upon the world again,
Mm-hmm.
want to have my own creator-owned Kickstarter ready to go, and hopefully my Patreon page launched. This is still a part-time thing for me, and it's kind of at that point where something's got to give, the day job or this, And I would of course much rather have the art gig be a full-time job, and what supports me, and my family. So that's what I'm working towards. But that being said, if it doesn't work out that way, it doesn't mean I'm going to give it up. It just means that I just have to take a different avenue towards my goal. But the Kickstarter, through hell or high water is going to happen, because I've been playing this for like I'm almost going on 2 years now, 3 years now.
Yeah.
And it needs to come to fruition.
Yeah, tell us about the book you're doing the Kickstarter for.
So, without revealing too much, it's a book called "That One Time Parker and Poppy Saved the World," which is a mouthful. I know. It's set in the 80s. Believe it or not, this was determined before all the hype around Stranger Things, and it has less to do with nostalgia and more to do with I don't want to deal with modern technology and the kind of plot difficulties they can present. Such as trying to keep a secret identity with social media and all that, and the internet. So I just, and plus, the mid and late 80s were like, I want to say, some of my favorite times of my life, period. So it's a great excuse for me to be nostalgic and revisit that era of my life. And so it's basically about a sibling, a brother and sister, who get superpowers by literally eating their vegetables. There's an impending alien invasion. The aliens are in orbit, and while they're in orbit, the mad scientist alien is trying to concoct a formula to create a super army to conquer the Earth. But of course, he has to go through iterations of that formula. And on one of the failed formulas, he tells a lackey to dispose of it. Well, the lackey disposes of it in the wrong chute, and instead of being incinerated, it ends up getting sprayed out of the spaceship and into the Earth's atmosphere. It goes through a rain cloud, and through precipitation, it rains upon Parker and Poppy's father's garden, where he grows his own vegetables, because their father is an Asian fusion chef.
Oh, nice.
So the formula gets into the vegetables that they eat for dinner, but the catch is that the formula only affects prepubescent children. Yeah, so it doesn't affect adults or teens, only kids. So that's how they get their superpowers. And of course, it doesn't just rain in one patch. Rain falls everywhere.
Yeah. So
Parker and Poppy may or may not be the only kids that end up having powers, but they are the focus of the story.
Very cool.
Yeah. So and that came about because a couple of years ago, my daughter was really into Teen Titans, the cartoon. And she really loved Starfire. And we were at the bookstore, and we walked by the comic rack, and she walked past the Teen Titans comic book. And this is when they redesigned Starfire, and it was kind of a hyper-sexualized version of her costume. And my daughter was like, she posed an awkward question of like, "Hey, Daddy, is that Starfire?" And I was like, "Yes, sweetie, that's Starfire." She said, she asked me, "Why is Starfire dressed like that?" And I had no good answer for her.
Yeah.
And it got me to thinking that there's, from what I see anyway, there's kind of a shortage of gateway comics like I had when I was a kid.
Yeah.
That was safe to read with your kid. I won't even say necessarily leave your kid alone with the comic book, but because you should know what your kid is reading.
Yeah.
But there wasn't like my first Spider-Man comics. It wasn't boobs falling out of every costume,
Right.
and it wasn't like super dark, super mature origins or content matter. I mean, as dark as it got was that Uncle Ben got shot. And that was why he became Spider-Man. But the bottom line was the stories that I read as a kid made me walk away wanting to be a superhero, wanting to be a good guy. And what I find nowadays is that there's such a focus on the grim and gritty. To me, if I was a kid, it's like, why would I want to be a superhero? It sounds like a sucky life. It makes for a great story, but it sounds like it sucks. So I wanted to create something that would be a great gateway into that world for a kid, that a parent could read with their kid and not have to worry about why this costume look this way, or why is this person hell-bent on killing everybody in such a graphic manner. So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with sexuality. You know what I mean?
No.
But to me, it's like there's time for that. there's no reason to rush into it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or and the grim and gritty stuff. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, Tim Burton's Batman
Yeah.
was like grim and gritty to me. You know, I mean, by today's standards, that's pretty tame. But back then, I was like, holy cow, this is like super dark and mature.
Yeah.
And of course, as a teenager, I want the dark and mature because it makes me feel adult. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So there is a place for that.
Absolutely.
But I feel like there's nothing else though. You know?
Yeah, there needs to be other options for different
Definitely.
audiences. And
Yeah.
and I think that you're absolutely right, that there's no stepping stone. Like you have to either just plunge directly into that, and there's no graduation into those kind of storylines. So I hopefully Poppy and Parker will save the day.
I hope they do too.
Yes, yes. And you see the Popeye influence with the eating the vegetables in that.
Yeah.
Very cute. Very cute. So, yeah. Okay, Vince. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And now, where can people find you if they want to check out your artwork, want to get in touch with you for commissions?
Oh, cool. Yeah. So, thank you again for having me.
Mm-hmm.
It's always fun talking. As you can see, I love to talk. But anyway, yeah, you can see some of my work. I need to update it because some of the stuff is starting to get a little old. But on my website, eggdropramen.studio,
Mm-hmm.
and it's spelled exactly how it sounds. And all my social media is under Egg Drop Ramen Studio.
Yep.
So and yeah, so for commissions, you can message me through my website, or you can DM me via Instagram or Twitter, and yeah, you can get a hold of me that way. I'm super active on Instagram more than any other social media. I'm trying to be better about it this year. Trying to be more regular about posting stuff. I still get a little bit of that anxiety of posting unfinished works and all that, but I definitely like to post stories of like stuff in progress, and just I like to be silly on there. I don't want to take it too seriously and treat it as like a super business type account.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's how you can get a hold of me and follow me.
Yeah. Okay. Very cool. All right. Thank you so much, Vince, and have fun. Enjoy your arting, and I'm looking forward to see what you come out with next.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Nap.
All right.
You stay safe as well.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Special thanks to Vince Alvendia. Thank you so much for being on the show. You can go ahead and follow Vince at eggdropramen.studio. That's his website, or on his Big Cartel page, eggdropramenstudio.bigcartel.com. On Instagram at eggdropramen, and you know what? On Twitter, eggdropramen, and on Facebook, eggdropramen. It's so easy. Why not follow? And thank you so much to Savage C. Walnar, our legendary announcer. Thank you for all you do. And thank you to Ethan MEIXSELL, the composer of the UMIND theme, Demilitarized Zone. If you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/lucidnap, or you can do a small one-time donation at buymeacoffee.com/lucidnap, or you can buy my comics and art at lostbreadcomic.com. Yay, they all work. I mean, you could also follow us if you don't want to contribute. You could just go ahead and follow us and keep up with us. Spread the word. Let everybody know how much you love the show. It would be a really big deal for everybody involved. And you also should check out Creeping Wave Radio. It is our scripted audio drama. It ties into the UMIND. It ties into my comic book, Lost Bread. It's a great time, and we have a lot of local San Diego musicians, a lot of local San Diego actors who come in and contribute to the show. We do it. Our next season is coming out in October, hopefully. It's always a little bit tricky coordinating things, but that's the hope, is October. So yeah, and thank you for watching. Thank you so much, because whether you're watching or listening, it's all about you and interacting with you and sharing this moment with you. And we can't exist without you or without our Patreons, The Grammarica Show, Nikki Benfield, and Neil, who are amazing, wonderful, beautiful people who fill our life with joy and happiness. The UMIND is brought to you by Lucid Nap Productions in cooperation with
Don't say it.
a hairy old man.
I'm not that hairy.
You've got goat legs, for crying out loud.
Hello, podcast addicts and curious listeners. Dr. Galvanic's Odd Tales is a narrated podcast with dark, thrilling and mysterious stories. In each episode, Dr. Galvanic's Odd Tales will take you through the mysteries of the Australian outback, lead you into a remote corner of the galaxy, or it will accompany you through a mind-bending nightmare. You can find Dr. Galvanic's Odd Tales on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Subscribe to the show so you won't miss another episode. See you out there.
This has been a presentation of the Project Entertainment Network.